so much for everyone who's gone so far. We're actually running a little ahead of schedule. And so if we finish in time, we will open it up for questions for the audience. Otherwise, you can find Cassie, Clara, Harrison, or myself at any point throughout the rest of the conference and ask us questions about the topics that we talked about. Okay, so mine is going to be, so we've done physical, we've done the family one, we've done identity, and now it's going to be about relationships. And here's the kind of claim to credibility for myself. I recently got engaged. But throughout my life, I have dated a lot, and I have had many girlfriends throughout my life. So that's the dating side. And then in my day job, I am a manager at a company, so I hire a lot. I spend a lot of my time recruiting people, interviewing people, hiring. And what's interesting is if you look at the hiring market, it's companies do it and it's competitive, and so a lot of money is poured into that and people study it. And hiring and dating are like kind of similar in that you're trying to find someone who is a good fit for you or for a role, whatever that is. And so what can we take from hiring in the dating world? And here's a few hot tips for you. Oh, also, this is one of my friends. He's a CEO at a company. He literally doesn't date and hire at the same time. So when he's at like a intense hiring time for his company, he's not like dating. And then when he's like, hey, I need to focus on my personal life and like find a girlfriend, he's not hiring. Okay, so number one, when you're hiring, this is every single company that ever hires, all the job hunting things that you guys have seen, they all visualize hiring like this. It is a funnel. There's a top of the funnel with like thousands of applicants, and then a bottom of the funnel, which is the number of people who you give an offer to, and that ratio is usually like 1 to like many thousands. And so one thing to think about here is like the insight here is first you track the funnel. Each step of the funnel is a small percentage of the step above. As a result of this funnel, the top of the funnel is very high volume, low touch. We'll talk about what that means later. And then the other piece is you debug the funnel. So wherever you feel the drop-offs are happening, you can look at that funnel analytically and debug where you're at. Okay, so this is number one, hiring funnel. Number two, you should ask open-ended questions during interviews. And you should think of yourself as the interviewer when you are going on these dates. I think a lot of people go on first dates being like, I want to have fun, or I want to like impress the other person. And actually, I would say your goal on that first date is to learn as much about the other person as you can. And many times, that is also what makes the other person feel very heard and have a lot of fun too. So some examples of open-ended questions are, instead of do you like to travel, you should ask what is your favorite travel memory? Not how many siblings do you have, but tell me more about your relationship with your siblings. I literally recommend just memorizing a list of these questions. So when the like conversation comes into a lull, and you can do this when you're meeting new people too, not just dating. But when the conversation is in a lull, you just pop out one of these questions. So if you had a crystal ball that could tell you anything, what would you ask it? Or if you could wake up tomorrow having gained one skill, what would that be? Or if you could change one thing about how you were raised, what would that be? And those questions really get you to like know who this other person is. And the last thing, this is my hottest take, is you should use consistent criteria to evaluate candidates, which is the headline for, you should have a spreadsheet. And your spreadsheet should have consistent criteria over time. So this is my now fiance in my spreadsheet after our first date. Feel free to read it. But the reason we do this in the hiring world is because you want to make sure you don't forget about all the aspects that you cared about. So when you, in the job hunting session, you heard everyone talk about, we asked XYZ type of questions. You want to make sure you're covering all those while dating. You want to look at this to also change the way that you do your interviews such that you're getting highest signal across the criteria that you care about. So you might realize once you decide, like, hey, something I really care about is we have to share a vision for family and career in the future. Well, if you're not getting any signal on this, you got to change how you do your interviews, right? And then the last one is you want to avoid time bias. In the hiring world, you also want to avoid a lot of other biases, which matters less for dating. But you want to avoid time bias, which is like you might have had an off day that day, but you want to be consistent about evaluation. Okay, so the 3 takeaways. Think of dating as a funnel. ask open-ended questions, evaluate with consistent criteria. And here's an example playbook for you. For anyone who's trying to date right now. So here's your funnel. You got your sourcing, screening, on-site, offer. Got to make the offer, okay? We'll send these slides out too, so everyone can pictures. But yeah, you're literally optimizing, right? So if you're on a dating app, look at the number of people you're swiping on. Look at the matches. If you're not getting matches, you got to debug the funnel, right? If you don't like dating apps, that's okay. Think about it as like, are you putting yourself in a position where you're meeting a lot of people at the top of the funnel? And if the answer to that is no, you got to debug that. So this is the playbook. And the last thing I'll say is hiring is a full-time job. It takes a lot of time. Dating could be that way too, but also don't overdo it. This is just an analogy. Dating needs to be fun. You have to have a good time while you're doing it too. So that's the thoughts, and go out and prosper.